Season 1 of From introduces Boyd Stevens, the sheriff of a town filled with residents who are unable to escape. The main road is blocked by a fallen tree, and all other routes supernaturally double back into the town's center. At night, the town is preyed upon by deadly human-like creatures, forcing residents to remain indoors and ward off the monstrous threats with mysterious talismans. After an extended period of peace in the town, the residents' lives are disrupted by the arrival of the newest trapped inhabitants, as an RV containing the Matthews family, parents Jim and Tabitha, and children Julie and Ethan are run off the road by the drunk driver Toby and his friend Jade. Boyd leads a group to rescue the new arrivals, including the injured young Ethan, who begins having a seizure, and explains to them the mysteries and horrors of their new home. As the Matthews family survive their first night, Boyd explains his own history in the town. A few years prior, Boyd, his wife Abby, and their son Ellis similarly found themselves rerouted on a road trip by a fallen tree into a town they can't escape. Back then, the residents were led by a woman named Donna and the priest, Father Kotri, though everyone lived in a constant state of fear of the creatures. Boyd and Abby quickly took charge to better prepare the residents to not just survive, but actually live. As Boyd went venturing off for answers about their strange new home, Abby's mental health began to deteriorate. Ellis warned his father that Abby needed him present, but Boyd ignored his son to continue working for the community. While out exploring the surrounding woods, Boyd was one day forced to take shelter at night in a nearby cave to evade the creatures. There, he first discovered the mysterious talismans and their ability to ward off monsters. With these talismans, the town could now have some sense of comfort at night, knowing they will be protected. When Boyd returned to town the next morning, Abby had become consumed with the belief that she was living in a nightmare, attempting to shoot the town residents dead to wake herself and everyone else up. When Abby pointed her gun at Ellis, Boyd was forced to shoot his own wife dead, leaving him heartbroken and fracturing his relationship with Ellis. Now, Boyd explains the Matthews family must take part in the choosing ceremony, where they will decide whether they want to live in the town, led by Boyd, where residents try to live normal lives and strive for one day finding a way to escape, or the nearby colony house, led by Donna, where the community lives a more free-spirited lifestyle, embracing what little time they may have left. And though Jim, Tabitha, and Ethan choose to live in the town, Julie chooses to live in Colony House, revealing she knows her parents had intended to divorce after one last family vacation, and rebukes them for keeping this a secret. At the Colony House, Julie befriends Boyd's estranged son Ellis and Ellis's girlfriend Fatima. Elsewhere in the town, Boyd's loyal deputy Kenny arrives at the clinic to discover that in the night, someone let the creatures inside, resulting in the death of not only the drunk driver Toby, but also Kenny's own father, Bing Kyan. Kenny finds comfort in his mother, diner manager Tan Chen, and his crush, Dr. Christie. Although Christie has developed mutual feelings for Kenny, she resists pursuing a relationship, holding on to the hope of one day escaping the town and reuniting with her fiancé, Mari. While acclimating to their new lives, the Matthews family witnessed the public punishment of a resident named Frank, whose drunken carelessness led to the creatures killing his wife and daughter. For his sins, Frank is locked inside the box at night, with no talisman for protection, allowing the creatures to prey on him. Meanwhile, Jade is a wealthy software developer who moves in with Kenny and his mother, Ten Chin. Although Jade first struggles to believe the supernatural events occurring around him, he does confess to seeing a screaming man crushed by a boulder in the nearby root cellar. But Kenny dismisses these claims as hallucinations. While living with Kenny and his mother, Jade's pompousness constantly annoys them, though he does eventually win Ten Chin over by helping her grieve her husband. Meanwhile, Ethan befriends the strange colony house resident Victor, who has been stuck in the town since he was a young boy. The pair bond over their shared visions of a boy in white. Victor explains that the first time he saw the boy in white was the last time the town had two different arrivals on the same day. Victor then shows Ethan a faraway tree in the surrounding forest, whose hollow in its trunk can teleport people to another random place in town. Elsewhere, town resident Sarah has been plagued by voices commanding her to commit sinister acts, like secretly killing Toby and allowing the creatures to enter the clinic. As Sarah prepares to follow the voice's commands and kill Ethan, her brother Nathan intervenes. Ethan manages to escape, while Sarah accidentally kills her own brother. Father Kotri then secretly captures Sarah and questions her about the voice voices that she has been hearing, explaining his own theory that all of the town residents are a part of God's plan for a new chapter of the Bible. Sarah explains that the voices warned her that the arrival of Jade and the Matthews family would bring death to everyone in the town. But by following the voices' commands, everyone would be saved and finally allowed to leave. Tabitha Matthews becomes obsessed with the town's electricity coming from no discernible power source. Realizing that all electrical wires seem to only lead down into the ground, she begins digging into her new basement to find the power source. During this excavation, Tabitha experiences a strange vision of a mysterious lighthouse. Further confounding Tabitha is that in the diner's storage, filled with belongings of dead residents, she finds a bracelet that she had made for Jim that he had lost several years prior. Jade is determined to find a way to leave the town and begins trying to craft a radio. While trying to raise an antenna in the woods, Jade hallucinates the bloody aftermath of a Civil War battle and sees a strange symbol carved into a tree. Tin Chin shows Jade a notebook from the storage room that contains drawings of the same symbol, as well as a photograph of Victor as a young boy. Jim joins Jade's mission to build a working radio and oversees the creation of a radio tower to boost the signal over the tree line, though its construction will deplete many of the town's dwindling resources. As Jim builds the tower and helps Tabitha dig her hole in the basement, the pair confront the state of their relationship, fractured after the death of their infant son Thomas, and begin to reconcile their marriage. At a colony house party commemorating Fatima's anniversary of entering the town, a resident named Kevin is tricked by his creature crush Jasmine into letting her inside. Jasmine kills Kevin and allows the other creatures to enter and begin slaughtering the residents of Colony House. Amidst the chaos, Victor helps Julie flee into the woods, where he gives her a stack of his drawings and helps her enter a faraway tree, transporting her to the safety of the root cellar. Meanwhile, Donna leads a group to a van to race into town. As Boyd and Khatri help to ferry the Colony House residents inside, Khatri is mortally wounded by one of the creatures, and as he dies, he is confused by how his time in the town proved to have such little purpose. In the aftermath of the Colony House massacre, Elisa and Fatima get engaged, while Julie moves to town to live with her family once again. Ethan becomes obsessed with the seemingly prophetic drawings that Victor gave Julie, and becomes determined to understand their meaning. With fear and desperation growing throughout the town, Boyd decides to venture off into the dangerous and uncharted forest, hoping to find answers or a way out. Boyd looks to Kenny as a surrogate son and successor as the town's leader, and entrusts him to protect the residents in his absence, while also confessing that he has early onset Parkinson's. Fatima helps encourage Ellis to finally reconcile with his father before his departure, allowing Boyd to profess his pride and love for his son. Inspired by Khatri's faith, Boyd decides to take Sarah with him on his journey into the forest, believing she can use the voices she hears to guide them. On Boyd and Sarah's journey into the forest, they find a tree adorned with glass bottles. As Boyd investigates the bottles, Sarah has a seizure. While tending to Sarah in their tent for the night, Boyd reads a message from a bottle that simply reads 1864. Sarah hears the voices again, warning that there are more dangerous things in the forest than the creatures, and calls Boyd by the nickname that his wife Abby used to use. An unseen force then attacks the tent and drags it through the forest, leaving Boyd and Sarah with no idea where they are or how to return home. Back in the town, Jim's group successfully erects the radio tower and acquire a signal, just as a massive storm approaches. Jim manages to make contact with someone on the radio who shockingly calls him by his name and warns that Tabitha should stop digging her hole. As Jim races to warn Tabitha, she breaks through the depths of the basement and falls into a cave, where she is confronted by Victor, who has waited for her on the instructions of the boy in white. Victor warns that the creatures sleep in these caves, and so they must flee to safety. As the season comes to a close, Boyd and Sarah, caught in the storm, stumble across the lighthouse from Tabitha's vision. They are then confronted by the boy in white, who urges them to climb through a nearby faraway tree. Sarah helps Boyd through, but on the other side, the sheriff finds himself now helplessly stuck at the bottom of a well. Season 2 of From, Jim reaches his family's home to warn Tabitha to stop digging, but finds nothing but rubble in the basement. As he tries to dig down to reach his wife, the entire house collapses around him. Meanwhile, Tabitha is led by Victor through the creature-infested tunnels. As the pair make their escape, Tabitha begins to be plagued by visions of mysterious ghoulish children. Upon reaching the tunnel's exit and emerging into the forest, Victor realizes the night will soon fall, and races Tabitha to refuge inside inside a nearby truck that he has long used as his own personal hideaway. Back in town, a bus filled with passengers arrives, confused by their inability to leave. Donna and Kenny greet the strangers and hurry them inside the diner to avoid being outside at night. Those that refuse to listen to the warnings are all slaughtered as the creatures descend upon them. While helping tend to the scared bus passengers, Christy is shocked that one of the new trapped residents is in fact her fiance Mariel, leading to the two emotionally reuniting. Elsewhere, Boyd is rescued from the well by a mysterious and elderly stranger named Martin, who has been chained to the wall of a dungeon for many years. As a music box begins playing, Martin warns Boyd that a monster more sinister than the creatures is near. Martin then cuts Boyd's arm and forces parasites into the wound before collapsing dead. Boyd grabs a torch for light and suddenly finds himself transported back to the forest, where he follows a stray dog to safety, leading him to the truck to seek refuge with Tabitha and Victor. The following morning, Boyd finally returns to town and reunites with Ellis, encouraging him to not make the same mistakes that he did with Abby, and be there for Fatima's emotional support. And so Ellis and Fatima decide to get married. Meanwhile, Jim is freed from the rubble and happily reunited with his family. As Boyd and Donna survey the wreckage from the storm, they discover that many of their crops have been destroyed, and they are running dangerously low on much-needed supplies. This problem is exacerbated by the arrival of the bus passengers, which includes Christy's fiancée Mariel, bus driver Bakta, the elderly Tilly, the selfish and troublemaking Randall, and Elgin, who begins experiencing prophetic dreams. With Victor now back in town, Jade questions him about the mysterious symbol and the photo of Victor as a boy that was stashed inside the journal. In exchange for Jade playing Twinkle Twinkle Little Star on a violin, which Victor's mother used to play to him as a child, Victor attempts to answer all of Jade's questions. Victor explains that the older man in the photo was named Christopher, who grew from jovial to sinister after seeing the symbol and becoming obsessed. One day, the young Victor was hidden away from Christopher by his mother, and when he emerged, every single resident in town had been killed. Meanwhile, Boyd discovers that the faraway tree teleported Sarah to the church basement. Back in town and looking to make amends, Sarah confesses to everyone that she was responsible for letting the creatures into the clinic, resulting in the death of Kenny's father. Kenny is distraught by this revelation and demands that Sarah be locked inside the box at night as retribution for her actions. Boyd refuses, believing Sarah could be useful in uncovering the town's secrets, leaving Kenny feeling betrayed, rebuking his surrogate father, and quitting as deputy. While struggling with his responsibilities as a leader, Boyd also begins being plagued by the parasites beneath his skin, as well as constantly hearing the music box and seeing visions of a ballerina. Elsewhere, bus passenger Tilly is suffering from cancer and gives her stash of much-needed liquid morphine to Christy for safekeeping at the clinic. Mariel, a recovering drug addict, secretly begins stealing the morphine. Christy catches her fiancé in the act, leading to Mariel explaining that she was on her way to rehab when her bus got stuck in town, having relapsed into her old addictions following Christy's disappearance. And now that the lovers are reunited, Christy vows to help Mariel kick her addiction once again. Fellow bus passenger Randall grows antagonistic and resistant to the town's rules, getting himself kicked out of Colony House and instead taking up residence inside the abandoned bus. After discovering that Randall has a drone, Jim seeks his help to fly the radio antenna above the tree line. As the pair work together, they bond over a shared theory that all of the town's residents are being observed by some unseen force as part of a mystery experiment. Jade and Tabitha begin to bond over the various visions and hallucinations the town is showing them, like the symbol to Jade and the ghoulish children to Tabitha. When Tabitha reveals that she had seen the symbol inside the tunnels, Jade grows frustrated with Victor for having not previously told him this revelation. Tabitha takes a gentler approach in dealing with Victor, and he shows Tabitha pictures that his sister Eloise had drawn when they were kids, before her death with the rest of the town. Jade realizes that one of the pictures depicts the Civil War, like his previous vision, while Tabitha realizes that one of the pictures is of the lighthouse, which Victor explains his mother was journeying to the night of the massacre to save the children. Meanwhile, tensions grow amongst the town residents as food supplies have dwindled following the storm washing away all of the crops. While trying to calm an angry resident named Dale, Ellis is accidentally stabbed and raced to the clinic. Though his son is in need of a blood transfusion to save his life, Boyd worries about passing the parasitic worms to Ellis. And so Boyd devises a risky plan, going outside at night and attracting a smiley-faced creature and forcing it to absorb the parasites. This not only cleanses Boyd's blood, but also shockingly kills the creature. As Boyd gives his blood to Ellis, saving his life, Christy performs an autopsy on the first creature that the town has ever killed. She discovers that the monster has no blood, but does collect its bile to test if it will have a similarly lethal effect on the other creatures. While struggling with the lack of food, the town residents also begin suffering from horrifying dreams that harm them in real life, forcing Boyd to warn everyone to stay awake or sleep in shifts. Kenny has a dream about the music box where a voice warns him that 3 residents will die unless the melody is stopped. Elsewhere, Randall becomes obsessed with the idea that he is the subject of an experiment, that the creature's attacks are fake, and that some of the other town residents must be in on it. To test this theory, Randall captures Donna and threatens her at knife point. Jim and Boyd arrive to save Donna, but Randall throws away their car keys to force them into staying outside at night and facing the creatures. As Jim hotwires the van, Boyd coats his bullets in bile to use against the approaching creatures, though they unfortunately have no effect. As Boyd, Jim, and Donna flee to safety in the van, Randall heads off alone into the forest, where he is overwhelmed by a swarm of cicadas. Boyd, Jim, and Donna reach Colony House, where Mariel and Julie separately have visions of similarly being swarmed by cicadas, leaving them both comatose. The next morning, Randall is found in the forest, unharmed by the creatures, but having also fallen into a coma. Fatima discovers that she is pregnant and, worrying about all that has happened in town, decides that she and Ellis should get married immediately, not knowing how long either of them will survive. Boyd emotionally watches as his son gets married, in a brief moment of happiness amidst the horror. Jade ventures alone into the tunnels in search for more information on the mysterious symbol. While there, he too has a vision of the ghoulish children. Tabitha believes that she must journey to the lighthouse as Victor's mother attempted in order to save Julie. Victor agrees to help Tabitha, leading her to a new bottle tree that also serves as a faraway tree that teleports her to the lighthouse's entrance. Sarah hears a voice that explains that Boyd had inadvertently released the music box monster onto the town, and to prevent it from killing Julie, Mariel, and Randall, Boyd will have to find the music box and stop its melody. And so Boyd returns to the dungeon, where he not only finds the music box, but also Julie, Mariel, and Randall chained to the same wall that had imprisoned Martin. The monster uses visions of Abby to try to deter Boyd, but the sheriff resists and destroys the music box, waking up Julie, Mariel, and Randall, and causing the dungeon to disappear once again. As the season comes to a close, the town residents celebrate their victory over the music box monster, unaware that elsewhere in the forest, Tabitha is ascending the lighthouse. Upon reaching the top, she is pushed out of a window by the boy in white, leading her to wake up inside a hospital, somehow now outside the town, where a doctor claims that she had been found in the woods by hikers 3 days prior. In Season 3 of From, Jim desperately searches for the missing Tabitha. Kenny accompanies him as he seeks out the lighthouse, and on their journey, the pair follow a path of totems to a previously undiscovered settlement of log cabins. While taking shelter at night, Jim realizes that if he dies on this mission, his children will be left orphans, and so he ultimately decides to return to town, giving up hope of finding Tabitha alive. Although the music box monster has been defeated, the town still struggles with the lack of food, discovering that their last remaining crops have grown rotten. At night, the creatures then release the town's livestock, their sole remaining food source. As Boyd and his allies try to herd the animals back into their pens, the creatures attack, chaining Boyd down and forcing him to watch as they torture and kill Tin Chin in front of him, in an effort to fully break his spirit. Jim and Kenny return to town the next morning, revealing that fresh crops are growing at the settlement, but Kenny is left heartbroken by the news of his mother's passing. As Jim struggles to comfort Julie, who remains traumatized by her experience with the music box monster, he receives a phone call from a child's voice, claiming to be his deceased son Thomas. Julie finds comfort in Elgin, who is plagued by haunting visions of a horrifying kimono woman. Elsewhere, Tabitha is reeling from the revelation that she has somehow left the town and arrived in a hospital in Camden, Maine. Desperate to find someone who won't assume her story is crazy, Tabitha seeks out Victor's father Henry, convincing him of the town's existence and that his son has been trapped there for decades. Henry reveals that his wife Miranda had been plagued with visions of the lighthouse and township before getting stranded there with their children Victor and Eloise. Miranda believed that it was her destiny to find the lighthouse and save the children, and now Henry believes that Tabitha has been chosen to fulfill what Miranda couldn't. Henry then reveals that Miranda had created bottle trees as art installations, and the first bottle tree is where she had her original visions of the town. As Henry and Tabitha race to the bottle tree in the hopes of finding answers, Tabitha finds a bracelet in Henry's car that is an exact replica of the one she made for Jim. Henry explains that Miranda had made it for him before her disappearance, and this confusion sends Tabitha into an emotional spiral that results in the pair getting into a car accident. As EMTs and police officers arrive to rush the pair to the hospital, the ambulance is diverted from their path by a fallen tree in the road. As night falls, Tabitha realizes that they have somehow returned to the town, and warns her new companions of the creatures that will soon descend upon them. The EMTs refuse to heed her warning and are slaughtered by the monsters, while the shocked police officer Danny Acosta flees from the carnage. As Acosta races to the nearby colony house, she begins firing her gun at the creatures and accidentally kills a resident named Nikki. Boyd arrives to rescue Tabitha and Henry, but as he does, the creatures force him to coldly abandon Randall to them. In the end, Tabitha is emotionally reunited with her family, who had lost hope in never seeing her again. The next morning, Boyd is shocked to discover that despite severe injuries, Randall has been left alive by the creatures. Upon learning of Tabitha's return, the town grows angry at her for failing to bring help. A resident named Dale, hoping to follow Tabitha's path out of town, enters the bottle faraway tree despite Boyd's warnings. Dale is then teleported inside the concrete walls of an empty pool, causing him to suffocate to death. Henry and Victor are then emotionally reunited after decades apart. At first, Henry is apprehensive of his now adult son's perceived delusions, like his new quest to find a ventriloquist doll that belonged to Christopher, the resident who went mad after becoming obsessed with the symbol. Despite this, Henry accompanies his son on a mission into the tunnels to find the missing doll, which Victor believes will reveal much needed answers. Instead, Victor remembers that it wasn't the doll that spoke to Christopher, but the boy in white. The boy had explained that the ghoulish children were killed by those they trusted most. As they died, the last of their hope birthed roots, appearing as the symbol that has long haunted Jade, that eventually grew into the original bottle faraway tree. The boy in white told Christopher that he needed to save the children by entering the tree, but he refused. And so the young Victor warned his mother, leading to the deaths of Miranda and the entire town. Despite their initial happy reunion, Jim and Tabitha's marriage strains once again as Tabitha begins devoting her time to helping Jade in his obsession with the symbol. As Jade tries to determine the meaning of the numbers written inside the bottle tree bottles, Tabitha realizes that she had dreamt of the town and the log cabin settlement as a little girl, leading her to believe that she was fated to be there. Julie and Randall bond over their shared experience with the music box monster. As Julie tries to calm the terror that now grips her every thought, she returns to the dungeon, where she has a vision of being there the night that Boyd was trapped in the well, and being instructed by Martin to toss the sheriff a rope to help him escape. When Julie recounts this vision to Ethan, he theorizes that she has the ability to travel to past chapters from the town's story, though warns that it is impossible to change history. Elsewhere, Ellis grows concerned by Fatima's pregnancy as she begins coughing up blood, suffers from erratic mood swings, and completely loses her appetite. Secretly, the only thing that satiates Fatima's hunger is feeding on the rotten crops. Christy uses an ultrasound from the ambulance on Fatima and shockingly discovers that there is nothing in her womb. This leads to many residents of the town to fear that Fatima is going crazy. As Fatima attempts to resist the urge to feed on the rotten crops, she is comforted by Tilly. Unfortunately, Fatima suddenly turns violent and kills her. Boyd helps Ellis cover up this act while Kenny and Officer Acosta begin an investigation, viewing Sarah as their prime suspect due to her past acts of violence. Meanwhile, Elgin finds an old Polaroid camera which begins printing photos to communicate with him. Guided by these photos, Elgin captures Fatima and locks her in a secret room inside the root cellar, claiming that there is something growing inside of her, but it is not her baby. Elgin then begins force-feeding Fatima his own blood, causing her pregnancy to rapidly develop. While searching for Fatima, Boyd and Kenny finally reconcile, and Kenny reassumes his position as deputy. Tabitha and Julie are led to the root cellar by the ghoulish children, where they find Victor, who emotionally blames himself for inadvertently leading his mother to her death. As Tabitha comforts him, she has a vision of the night of Miranda's death. Fearing for Tabitha's safety, Jim relents in turning to Jade and his obsessions for help. Henry then comforts his son, assuring Victor that he was not responsible for the deaths and that he is deeply loved. When Ellis realizes that Elgin has hidden away Fatima somewhere, Boyd contemplates violently torturing him for answers. Not wanting the sheriff's morals and spirit to be broken by the town, Sarah secretly tortures Elgin herself, gouging out his eye before he reveals Fatima's location in the hidden room of the root cellar. In the root cellar, the kimono woman helps Fatima give birth to a strange amniotic sac, which she then takes through a hatch in the floor. Ellis rescues Fatima, who reveals that she has learned that the creatures sacrificed their children to gain immortality. Meanwhile, Boyd pursues the kimono woman through the hatch and into the underground tunnels. There, Boyd watches in shock as the sac opens and rebirths a smiley-faced creature that he had previously killed with the parasites. As the season comes to a close, Jim, Tabitha, and Jade discover that the numbers within the bottle tree bottles correspond to music notes, which Jade then plays using Miranda's violin. This melody attracts the ghoulish children, though Jim is unable to see them. Tabitha finally realizes that she and Jade are in fact reincarnations of Miranda and Christopher. As Jim tries to process this revelation, he is confronted by a future version of Julie, who warns him to run away in the hopes of changing his fate. Unfortunately, Julie is too late, as Jim is confronted by a man in a yellow suit, revealed to have been the voice that Jim heard on the radio, and brutally murdered in front of his own daughter.